Damien episode 5, 7 Curses. Now, I definitely have to say this is, without a doubt, the best episode that the show has had so far. I really love this one. There was no, I kind of like this or I didn't like that. The little stuff that, of course, not literally the whole episode could, be like just one section. So we did have some other little things. Some of what, like all of it, I actually did enjoy. Even the little stuff, which I'm glad it didn't get too much attention. They really focused on the soldier and Damien, kind of the relationship that they form in this episode. But even the little stuff was good, and that's kind of what I'll talk about first since it was really small. But we have Anne with who we find out is officially her daughter because it was kind of like, who is this girl? What's going on with that? And we find out that this girl, being her daughter, is Damien's sister. So I'm not sure. Of course, I'm assuming it's kind of like a stepsister sort of deal, but he is meant to be this young girl's brother. So that I thought was actually really cool. I was like, okay, don't know what that means, but it shows the relationship of this woman to Anne, and I'm not sure where they're gonna take that. But I was like, I like the fact that that's supposed to be Damien's sister, at least in some regard. That's meant to be his sister. So I'm actually very excited to see how that plays out because she seemed like she was on Anne's side, but when she kind of goes out and it's like, yeah, I kind of want to blow off some steam because the prodigal son has returned, and he's kind of just like the poster child because oddly enough, as the son of the devil, he's like the poster child. So it makes me wonder what her role is because I'm assuming, as I've said a million times by now, even though it's only the fifth episode, I still don't know Anne's deal. Like, I'm still curious, like, is she a demon? Is she human? What exactly is going on with her? So now it makes me wonder if that's just her normal, her daughter, or how any of that stuff, sort of factors in. If that is her actual daughter, did she teach her that because well, clearly Anne is so very deeply involved in this stuff, and she has like the 666 cut into her leg and all that stuff. So clearly she's like a crazy fanatic as far as wanting this to happen, like wanting to push Damien down a very certain path. So if she's that crazy, it makes sense that she'd raise her daughter in that way, and maybe this is one of those cases where her daughter didn't just turn on her and say, like, you're insane. She, grew up and she just went along with that. And I'd like to see where they take that. So I was glad that that happened. It was a cool little introduction. We have Simone, whose name I finally remember. She actually goes to Damien's place to look at the pictures of the woman who is now showing up in all of the photos. And she fortunately survives because Anne wanted to, teach Damien a lesson, which she learned from her daughter. It's like, if he kind of pissed you off, then teach him a lesson, show him something. And so she tells him, like, oh, don't beat him up, don't hurt him too much. But of course, he's not there, and Simone is there as things just get destroyed. But I thought that was cool. I was like, all right, and even though he wasn't there, so he won't get the message until the next episode when he returns home. But he'll understand, like, she won't take that crap. Like, if he does something that she doesn't like, which I would assume is sending the cop after her, um, she's gonna turn on him. She's gonna do some stuff, at least to teach him a lesson. She can't, kill him off. But she has to at least teach him a lesson. So I actually like that as well. We have, and I mentioned this would probably end up happening. They did bring in the Vatican again and the priests and stuff like that. We also find out that apparently, they mentioned this in like the first episode, like, oh, all these blades were lost. There are like 8 of them, and this is the last one left. And it's funny because when that happened, I was like, okay, we got to see the other blade in Anne's place. I was like, that makes sense. They wouldn't know that she has one, so that made perfect sense to me. And then this one, it's just like a pedestal with blades sticking out of it. I'm like, what were they talking about? Was that just a lie or something? It was like, we can't tell people we have all these blades because they had, I want to say it was either 4 or 5 of them. I think something like that. I think it was like 4 of them. So they had 5 until the one guy got killed after he got split in half and it fell down the drain. So they had 5 out of 8, and I was like, he definitely said they were all like just lost or whatever. So that was pretty surprising. And we have this woman who is kind of in contact with some people, and she knows that Damien's in town, and she wants to take the blade and go to New York and kill him. And the guy stops her. It's like, we have to determine whether or not he's truly the beast, not you. And I thought they were going to definitely do a scene, especially after she was talking about having sinned, I thought she was just gonna flat out kill the guy. I thought she was gonna kill him, kind of like for the greater good sort of thing. So I feel like that, they showed that for a good reason, I hope, and it wasn't just a random scene that's not going to matter in the next couple episodes. But it seemed like a good scene to me, and maybe the point really was to show that they actually have all those blades more than anything else. But I like that scene because it shows all those blades, and it shows, at least on a very small scale for this episode, kind of a bit of the inner turmoil of people who are really involved in the stuff with Damien, but they don't exactly have the power within the Vatican or anything like that to make certain decisions. So they have to sneak around and they have to steal the blades to try to get to Damien and kill him. But of course, the Vatican determines that they have to have a process because they don't want to go after, of course, an innocent person. So, kind of small scale stuff, but it's clearly leading into bigger things. So I enjoyed all those little moments. I'm not really sure where they're gonna take Simone's thing because, of course, what she found is kind of like I don't know where they could really take that, but I'm sure there's gonna be some bit of evidence that'll help her. But from my guesses, I can't really think of anything that would honestly make too much sense because it's like, all right, well, she found these pictures of the woman, and the woman was saying stuff which they heard in English. They saw the video already. They saw the notes. And it's like having pictures, I feel like is basically the same thing as having the notes. I feel like it just wouldn't really do anything extra. But I guess it's kind of just for her own confirmation, like something really weird is going on. So maybe it's more of a personal, bit for her than it is like getting extra information because it wouldn't do much. It's like just getting more notes. It's like, well, the notes would probably be even better than getting the pictures because they do just look like pictures where he photoshopped the woman into all these different places. So maybe it was just like a personal thing for her. I'm not sure, but we'll have to see where that goes. And then we have like the main story of this episode, which I think was incredibly well done. I'm not sure if it was the same writer or anything like that for this episode, but it was amazingly well done. Like the first chunk, and I was very surprised by this one because the first part of it has like nothing at all to do with the devil stuff and everything, and I was like, that really sucks because I know that once this section is over, because I figured they'd spend, like 15 or 20 minutes on it, and then it would go to basically everything else in this episode. And I'm glad at least I was somewhat wrong with that, and I'm glad I was, because I thought once this ends, that the rest of the episode is not possibly going to live up, but it certainly did. But the first section I thought was really well done. It was, like I said, and that was another reason I thought it sucked. I was like, man, it kind of sucks. Like, the best part of this episode is going to have nothing to do with Damien and kind of the devil side of the story. And I didn't realize this, of course, until, like, the very end, that it didn't have to deal with the demonic side, really. It just has to deal with Damien as a character. And it definitely does because of his war photography stuff. He does get like PTSD, and then all the weird stuff happening to him now. He has these issues going on, and he runs into the woman who Sonny saved, and he meets her husband and everything. And excuse me, the way that they did that was incredibly realistic, and I really enjoyed that because it wasn't something. For one, it wasn't something I expected, and I think what they showed was very different. Like, every once in a while a TV show will do something like that where they show people afterward and they talk about how, coming back home is, the weird thing. And I think they did it in such a different way that it had a greater impact. Because normally it's like, oh, it's someone who's dealing with PTSD, which is, it's not like that's simple or anything, and that does happen, but I feel like people kind of lean on that, like, oh, people just get PTSD, but people who come from war have all sorts of issues, and it's not just PTSD, and it's not just, you lost both your legs and stuff like that, and people tend to go those ways, but I think this went a very unique route where this man is like slowly dying, and he has, they do like CG after the part with the pool where they're putting him back in the bed, and they have like CG on his legs because when you have atrophy, of course, he's not using his legs, so his legs are really, really skinny. And I love the way that they did that. It was very realistic, and I really enjoyed that. I thought it had great emotional impact. Very well acted, for sure. The guy who played the soldier, I recognize him because he was actually in The Walking Dead. And so I was like, okay, I know he's definitely going to do a good job. He did a really great job in this episode. And, just the way that they deal with the emotions between him as well as Damien, I thought were just well done. Because of course Damien's going there because of all the weird stuff happening, and he, even though he's not in the war, he was in it, as a photographer. So they still have this connection, even though Damien wasn't really a soldier. He understands what it's like. He just happened to make it through without any physical injuries or anything like that. And I just love the way they did that. I thought it played out very well. And it goes through, and then we find out that the soldier actually wants to kill himself because he's slowly dying. He knows that it's hurting his family, and his idea is that it's easier to just kill himself now than it would be to slowly die off, and his family continues to worry and stuff like that. And this is definitely the first time where I was like, I don't want a death per episode. Like, this was definitely the time where I was like, I don't want somebody to die in this one. And it goes through, they have that section, and Damien has all the pictures, and I don't know, the scene where he changed his clothes I thought was really weird. But he has the pictures and stuff, and I think that's when you realize that he, he was still in the mode of he wanted to stop him from killing himself, but he goes back in, and then we get, where I was like, that was kind of the point where I was like, man, it's not going to be as good anymore. But then it got really good again, and it was very, very creepy, and I love that. I was like, the first half was insanely emotional and stuff, and then the second half, at least of the main story, because that was when they started to put some of the little stuff in for the next couple episodes. But once he went in and he went into the morgue, it was about as creepy as it could have possibly been, and I loved it. I was like, all right, so starts off pretty simple. He's in the morgue. Of course, once there's a dead body, and I was like, he's going to the morgue. This is going to be really weird. And then it just got insane. I was like, all right, so I can't tell what's happening. I don't know what's real. I don't know what's not real, because he ran into like those two nurses, and they're like trading the drugs and stuff, and it's like, oh, that's what the guy was talking about. So they were real, I'm assuming. And then he comes across, I guess the guy was a janitor or something. I don't know. He was some dude, and he was playing with the old guy in the wheelchair. They're playing dominoes. And I'm like, all right, that's kind of weird. They're just down there, but they could just want to hang out and be alone, whatever. And then of course he goes past him. I knew it was weird. I was like, this is really weird. And then they have like blood under the guy in the wheelchair. I was like, this is insane. I don't understand what's happening, but I liked that because it was creepy, and it was like he was in this weird interdimensional type of crazy thing going on with him, and he saw Simone on the table where the person, I don't know the terms, but the person was like cutting her head open and takes a chunk out of her skull, and then she like her head turns and stuff, which was a great shot. Like, it looked gross with her head open and stuff. I was like, that was a really good shot. The scene where he goes through and the people are reciting, I'm assuming they were reciting from the Bible, and he thinks he kind of walked in on people kind of just going through a session, and I was like, maybe that is what's happening. I couldn't really tell, because it's like some parts, he's running into real people, some parts he's running into fake people, and everything's creepy. Like, some people acknowledge him, and then some people don't, and it was really weird and creepy, and I like that. And of course, he thought he was falling behind the guy. I'm like, obviously that's not him in the wheelchair suddenly in the morgue. I knew that wasn't happening, so I was like, it's about to get really weird now. But I love that scene. I thought it was really well done, how creepy it was. And then they have this shot. I don't know where that was, but it seemed like he went into like a theater almost. I was like, this is really weird. And they have like the crazy distorted image and stuff, and it's all like moving side to side at weird, like a really sharp angle and stuff. And I like that. I was like, this is just weird. He's just running around this basement. I can't tell if he's like, I was honestly at one point I was like, he's probably just in the elevator right now. That's honestly what I thought for a second. Like, he could easily just be standing in this elevator, and this is just happening to him mentally. Like, I really couldn't tell if he was actually going anywhere, or if he was just, this was like all in his head, and he was still just standing in the elevator, and he was probably just by himself. But that's what I liked about it. I was like, I don't know. Like, obviously some stuff isn't happening and it's not real, but is he really even walking around seeing these people? What's going on? And I love that. I thought that was actually really, really great. And it kind of got to him. Ultimately, at the end, it got to him. And that's why he actually photographed the guy killing himself, which I thought was just, once again, it was a great scene. It was really crazy to actually watch that. And, like, I never would have thought this show would have, like, such an emotional impact, but I felt it really did for this episode. And I guess it was because it was something, so serious, and it was not just because of what Damien's doing. Obviously, it's like war. It's war. Like that's actually a very real thing, and they talk about the how many soldiers like kill themselves and stuff like that. So it had a very real life emotional impact. As I was watching it, I was just like, man, I can't believe he actually, he agreed to photograph this guy, and it's a weird thing to go through trying to stop someone, but he doesn't tell anyone in the hospital or anything like that, and he recognizes what the guy is going through because he is slowly dying. There's nothing, even if he published the story and he's like, there's no help coming, is really because of the fact that there can't be. There's not anything anyone could do, even if they wanted to just, throw money at it. There wasn't anything to do. So I just love the way that they played. That was very well done. And then after that, Damien decides to actually kill himself, and he goes to his old home, which I thought was a great, tie into the old movie, of course. So he goes to his old home. He sits in the car. Before that, he puts the tape on the garage and everything, and he just turns the car on, and he uses the drug on himself. But of course, whatever sort of evil power is behind him, which I would assume is the devil, takes all the tape off of the door. The dogs come in, and they just sit with him. And I thought that was actually a pretty cool shot, just how the dogs just walk up to the car and they kind of just sit there. And then of course we get the cut in there, dragging him out. The garage opens up, and they drag him out, and he's totally fine because they won't let him, kill himself. They won't let him die no matter what. But I really love this episode. I thought it was incredibly well done. I'm glad that we got an episode like this because I mentioned, starting off, I was like, iffy with the show, looking forward to where they take things. And the last episode I definitely enjoyed. But this one, despite, and like I said, it's mostly, that opening, the emotional impact that it had was just really well done. And it was more for the fact that they did a really good job, I think, kind of portraying a soldier returning home and how he's lived his life after war. So it really didn't have much to do. It still did a little bit because of the personal tie-in to Damien himself, but just even on its own, it was just really, really well done. And that's kind of the odd thing about it. Is like it was amazingly written and well acted, of course, but it's like it didn't have much to do with Damien himself until kind of the creepy second half where it was really weird, which I was glad that happened because I'm like, this is 100% Damien weird devil stuff happening. And that was 100% about the show. It related to the show. It wasn't just an amazing thing that could have been in really any other show. So I was glad that that happened because it did have a portion of this episode where I was like, all right, this could only be in Damien or some other sort of supernatural show, really. But this really does focus specifically on Damien and what the show is about. And then the war stuff was just really well done. But you could, like I said, you could take that out and put it into anything else, and it would still apply. It would still be a well written thing. But it's in this episode. It's in this show, so it's well done regardless of whether or not it really fits in too much to Damien. And it does have the tie-in with him initially going there with the PTSD and how, of course, it links into him having saved the man's son. But I thought it was a great episode. I was glad it had good little elements for what's going to be coming up. It had the creepy moment, which I was really glad happened because, like I said, you could have taken that war story and put it in any other show. It would have been great too. But they still had an amazing second half as well, which was specific to Damien. And that's probably the best thing about it. It's like, all right, this can't be in another show. It's the specific characters for this show, what they're dealing with, ramifications from last episode, what Damien did to Anne, where other characters are going to be going as well. So I was glad to see it happen. Doubt that the next one's going to be as awesome, but this is just a really, really well done episode. Glad to see that we have one like this. I'd like to see some more creepy stuff come up. The promo for the next one, it looked like some weird crazy death, like a person's like strung up. I don't know if that's like going to be some weird thing where maybe the cop's chasing a serial killer and he thinks it's Damien for whatever weird reason because he kind of has it out for him. So that would be kind of cool. But definitely looking forward to it. Definitely had some great stuff in this one, imagery-wise. Also, the weird mannequin thing, that was when it really got crazy when he first went down that hall and it was just like mannequin parts hanging. I was like, and now it's weird. I don't know what's happening, but now it's officially not a hospital because that doesn't happen. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, now it's getting really weird and creepy. So definitely some great stuff all around for this episode. Of course, definitely want to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, least favorite parts. And like I said, with what they did for this episode, where they could have taken the war stuff out, and they have definitely, the second half was really, this could only be in Damien, outside of him filming the guy at the end, of course. This was specific to Damien in the show. We also got the little girl back, which still didn't result in too much. She showed up, and it was just like, okay, weird. They're doing something with that little girl. I don't know what it is, but it's different than the dogs, obviously, and I mentioned that before. But I definitely want to know if you guys think that they can kind of keep something like this up, where they have creepy elements and they have more of a personal attachment to Damien himself and what he's going through mentally, rather than here's a set of events and here's someone coming after him, or here's the cop looking into someone that came after him, or a random death around him. Is there any way that more personal attachments to Damien, and maybe some of the other characters as well, do you think that could actually help the show? And that's what's been missing, like the personal mental connection to where everyone is within the series. Because I mean, it works so well in this one. I wonder if that's what's been missing, and I think we might get that from the cop because of what happened with his son. But it's hard to tell if that's what's missing, or it was just the war thing is just a great story. It was very well done. So I don't know if it would matter if they did, really personal connections for each character, but definitely want to know if you guys think that would make a difference. And of course, definitely want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.